PM Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, who has been Prime Minister several times in Nepal, has now stepped down, giving in to this key demand of the protesters, of the Gen Z protesters. This is really quite remarkable that on day 2 of these protests, the Prime Minister has stepped down. He had earlier called for an all-party meeting. However, we had spoken to some of the opposition leaders who were saying that there is no point to this all-party meeting and that the Prime Minister would have to go. And now there you have it. This is the big breaking news now that the Prime Minister has resigned. KP Sharma Oli, who has been Prime Minister of Nepal at least twice earlier as well, now having to resign in the face of these protests that are taking place in Nepal, that have really gripped Nepal and led to major upheaval, with houses of ministers being set on fire, his own private residence being set on fire, the parliament also breached by the protesters, and a wall of the parliament broken, and arson there as well. So given the kind of protests that have gripped Nepal, the Prime Minister there clearly no choice but having to resign in the face of this massive outpouring of anger and protest on the streets of Kathmandu in Nepal. A lot of it just targeting his government, with several ministers' homes being set on fire, his own private residence being set on fire, the Hilton in Kathmandu also being targeted. This is a huge, this is the big breaking news we're bringing you. Quite remarkable, I have to say. I did not think that it would happen this soon, that the Prime Minister stepped down, but clearly in the face of this kind of unrest, perhaps the discussions that must have been held, and said no choice but to step down. But the government has not all stepped down. That was what the youth was saying. So we'll have to see what happens now, who takes his place. There is no clear leadership of the youth that are protesting this Gen Z protest. There is no clear leadership that has emerged from there. We were speaking to some of the protesters, and they were saying that perhaps it is the mayor of Kathmandu who could possibly emerge as some sort of rallying leader, or some sort of face of these protests, or somebody who could possibly be some kind of leadership there. But let's go across to Vishal now for more. And Vishal, this is fairly remarkable, the massive development, breaking news, the Prime Minister of Nepal stepping down, submitting his resignation.
Yeah, this was in the making, and gradually we were stepping towards it, and that has indeed happened now. PM KP Sharma Oli has resigned. Earlier in the day, I had also spoken with a Nepalese source. He had told me that he was expected to resign by evening, and he has actually resigned even before that. So this was, as I mentioned, step by step things that have happened, because we've seen that at least 3 to 4 big ministers of the Nepalese government have already resigned, and KP Sharma Oli was under tremendous pressure to continue to resign. So that is what he's chosen, and there were also many unconfirmed reports that suggested that he would be leaving the country. That has not happened, but he has vacated his post, and this comes in the wake of these huge protests that have rocked the country. Lakhs of people are on Kathmandu and the rest of the city's roads, and at least 20 to 25 people have been killed, most of them really young folks. A kid as young as 12 had been killed yesterday. So all of that has culminated into this moment, into KP Sharma Oli's resignation, and he was already under pressure, even before all of this protest started, because ever since the ban was, kicked in, 26 social media apps were banned. Youth were, rallying on social media that something needs to be done. That percolated into a different level when these protests translated into the real world, because a lot of these protesters had congregated on social media, and they were trying to assemble people, rally people to take action on the ground, and that is what has happened. The protest started online, they transferred to the real world, and now they have already delivered one of the biggest results in Nepalese history. It's probably the biggest revolution Nepal has seen in the recent decades. We have seen some similar things happening in the last 20 to 30 years, but this indeed, a Nepalese PM resigning within a day of huge protest is quite big. So we'll have to see what happens now, because the head of the government has resigned. People are still up in their arms. So this was the
ask that, Vishal, because the Prime Minister has resigned, but it doesn't mean that the government is gone, right? I mean, this government remains very much in place. At least for the moment. I mean, we don't know. There's a lot of confusion and chaos, clearly. But yes, that was a big demand of the protesters that KP Sharma Oli must go, and he has now resigned.
Yes, so the head of the government has now resigned. It's only a matter of time before the government collapses, because his big leaders had already resigned. The health minister had resigned, the energy minister had resigned, and two other senior ministers had already given up their posts. So this was just a matter of time. The government, so to speak, is still in place, but it's just a matter of time before we see dissolution of the parliament. Parliament itself was attacked just moments ago. We've seen visuals. We have gathered visuals from across the country. We have reporters on the ground covering this, really tense moments. But the biggest development has come just now, as we've been covering that PM KP Sharma Oli has vacated his post. This was widely expected. And the people who have been up in their arms, it will be interesting to see how they respond now, because as you mentioned rightly, this was their biggest demand, that KP Sharma Oli needs to resign, because a lot of these quote-unquote Nepo kids, arguments that had been swirling around social media and into the real world, a lot of that pertains to some of the higher echelons of the Nepalese government. So the fact that the biggest head has now stopped functioning, so we'll have to see how people respond, because this is mostly people's movement. This did not have one single big representative rallying around people. This had many figures trying to unite. So this is the people's revolution. This did turn out to be a really violent one, but things seem to be normalizing now, if we can say that, because it's still early days, early minutes to say that, but we'll have to see what happens now.